Mets select David A. Wright, third baseman, Hickory High School, Virginia.
David Wright was a highly regarded top prospect when the Mets called him up in July 2004.
There's David Wright's first big league hit.
How about every Met fan knows about David Wright and he just got to the big leagues?
He'd been ranked among the organization's very best, praised as one of the purest hitters in his draft class, and quickly turned to a standout third baseman with real, raw power and polish at the plate. Over the next decade, he became everything a franchise could ask for: an all-star, a gold glover, a middle-of-the-order bat, the captain of the New York Mets. And then, just as he hit what should have been the heart of his prime, his spine quit out on him. Today, we're running the numbers and the tape on one of baseball's biggest what-ifs. What if David Wright never got hurt? From the mid-2000s through the early 2010s, David Wright wasn't just good. He was one of the best third basemen in baseball. Across 14 seasons with the Mets, he had a .296 batting average, a .491 slugging percentage, with 242 home runs, 970 RBIs, and 196 steals in 1,585 games. He made 7 All-Star teams, won 2 Gold Gloves, and 2 Silver Sluggers. He spent years in MVP conversation as the centerpiece of the Mets lineup. Inside the Mets universe, he basically rewrote the record book. By the end of his career, he either held or shared franchise marks in hits, runs, total bases, doubles, RBIs, walks, and extra base hits. If there was a major offensive category that mattered, his name was somewhere at the top of the Mets list. This wasn't a one-year wonder. For nearly a decade, you could pencil him in for an OPS in the high 800s or better, around 25 home runs, 40 doubles, plus defense at third. He was automatic, until it wasn't. The turning point came quietly. Early in his career, Wright had dealt with the usual bumps and bruises, but nothing that screamed career ending. That changed around 2011. During that season, he suffered a stress fracture in his lower back. He tried to play through the pain before the Mets finally shut him down, and he spent a lengthy time on the injury list working his way back. In 2012, he reminded everyone how good he was when his body cooperated. He played 156 games, hit over 300, got on base nearly 40% of the time, and looked every bit like the superstar third baseman the Mets had built around.
And so with that infield single, David Wright is now the Mets' all-time hits leader, career hit number 1,419.
But beneath the surface, the cracks were starting to show. By 2013, leg and hamstring issues began to join the back problems. Then came 2015, the year everything changed. Early that season, Wright strained his hamstring. While rehabbing, he started dealing with severe, persistent back pain. Doctors diagnosed him with spinal stenosis, a chronic condition where the spinal canal narrows and begins to compress the nerves. For a baseball player, especially a third baseman who lives in a crouch and generates power through violent rotation, that's devastating. From that point on, just getting on the field became a full-time job. His pregame routine reportedly took hours. Treatment, stretching, activation, all just to move well enough to take grounders and swing a bat. In 2015, he managed only 38 games. In 2016, a herniated disc in his neck led to surgery. He played 37 games that year. Over 2017 and 2018, shoulder, neck, and back issues all piled on. Every comeback attempt hit another wall. Finally, in September 2018, the Mets announced that David Wright would be activated for one last series. He started at third base at Citi Field. The crowd exploded. It felt like a celebration and a goodbye all at the same time.
A salute to the fans. And the captain is heading off for one final time.
This wasn't a normal age-related decline. His approach didn't suddenly evaporate. His spine shut him down. Before we rewrite his career, we need the rules. We're not imagining a version of David Wright who never ages. We're imagining a version whose body doesn't catastrophically fail in his early 30s. So here's the premise. No spinal stenosis diagnosis derailing him in 2015. No cascade of neck and shoulder problems that follow from that back condition. He will still slow down as he moves through his 30s like every star does. but he follows a normal star aging curve, not a free fall. To shape this, we will look at his established prime from the mid 2000s into the early 2010s. The typical aging patterns for high level position players, which is a peak around 26 to 28, then a gradual decline into the early to mid 30s instead of a sudden cliff. In simple terms, what if David Wright ages like a normal elite third baseman instead of like someone whose spine turned to a ticking time bomb at 30? Now let's put the real David Wright side by side with the version whose body never portrays him. In the real world, he finished with 1,777 hits. That's already a huge number for a guy whose career effectively ended in his early 30s. In the what if world, where his back holds up and he gets a normal star decline, he doesn't just creep past 2,000, he blows by it. You're realistically talking about somewhere in the 2,100 to 2,300 hit range by the time he's done. The same thing happens when you look at the power. The real David Wright stops at 242 home runs. That's with his age 32 and beyond seasons basically wiped out. Give him 4 or 5 more healthy years, even with some natural decline, and he's definitely into the 300s. A believable band for a healthy Wright is roughly 320 to 360 career home runs, instead of stalling just under 250. RBIs tell the same story. He actually ends at 970 RBIs, brutally close to the 1,000 mark. In the alternate timeline, he doesn't just sneak over 1,000, he cruises past it. A realistic finish is somewhere around 1,200 to 1,300 career RBIs. And then there's WAR, the all-in-one value stat. In reality, depending on which version you use, Wright sits around 50 to 52 wins above replacement. Again, that's with his career value basically capped at his early 30s. If you layer in the kind of 3, 4, even 5 win seasons he should have had in that window, you're adding another 10 to 15 WAR on top. That pushes him into the low 60s, roughly a 60 to 65 WAR player. So when you zoom out, the gap isn't just a few extra good years. You're talking about 2,100 to 2,300 hits instead of 1,777, 320 to 360 home runs instead of 242, 1,200 to 1,300 RBIs instead of 970, around a 60 to 65 WAR instead of just over 50. Those aren't cosmetic upgrades. That's the difference between franchise legend whose body gave out and a Hall of Fame caliber third baseman on paper, in the metrics, and in the eyes of voters. So after all of that, where does a healthy David Wright actually land? In the real world, every Hall of Fame conversation around him runs into the same wall. Everyone agrees the talent and the peak were there, but the story, it just stops too soon. In the what if timeline, the wall doesn't exist. Instead of asking, did he do enough before the injuries? You're looking at a complete arc. A star third baseman in a major market who puts together a full prime, a normal decline, and a resume that looks like it belongs next to the other greats at his position. At that point, the debate isn't, is this guy a Hall of Famer? It's more like, how does this stack up against the other third baseman of his era? And which ballot does he go in on? This also may have changed Mets history. In the real timeline, the middle of the 2010s is this weird mix of promise and instability. The rotation is filthy, and the Mets even made a World Series run. But the lineup feels like it's constantly being duct taped together. And the guy who's supposed to be the anchor is mostly stuck on the sideline. In the healthy timeline, that looks very different. Instead of wondering each spring, can Wright's body hold up? You're penciling him in into the middle of the order and at third base and building around him. And when you look back on Mets history years later, you're not skipping from 2006 heartbreak straight to 2015 magic with a gap in between. You're talking about the Wright years as one long, coherent era, with your captain actually on the field for almost all of it. When Wright has talked about his career, he's been honest about how hard the end was. Hours of prep just to play, the frustration of stepbacks, and the reality that his body tapped out before he did. And that's why this what if hits different. This isn't some cautionary tale about attitude or effort. It's about a franchise player who did almost everything right and still had the game taken away from him early. In the alternate timeline, he gets the full story. A normal decline, a complete stat line, a Hall of Fame case that feels finished instead of interrupted. In this timeline, he leaves with something else. The captaincy, a stack of franchise records, and a reputation as one of the few players Mets fans almost universally agree on. By the numbers, he might fall short of Cooperstown. By impact, he never really does. This is episode 1 of the What If series. So tell me in the comments, who's next? Grady Sizemore with healthy knees, Bo Jackson if he only played baseball, Steven Strasburg if his arm holds up. Subscribe and drop your pick below, and I'll build the next alternate universe.